This is the Water Supply Planning Committee meeting of November the 2nd at 4 p.m. Virtual meeting again. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes. Director Adams?
Here.
Director Evans?
Here.
Thank you. And Director Riley?
Here.
All committee members are present.
Okay, I see where we have a number of attendees. The first item on the agenda, comments from the public. This is mainly for items that are not on the agenda, but we will hear whatever comments you have. So let's open it up, please.
Okay, I see no, you see a raised hand, just a moment.
Molly, did you have a point to make? I'm not sure, ahead of the comment.
No, actually, I was just asking Bill to silence the cuckoo clock. Sorry.
I feel like a cuckoo clock sometimes. Okay, back to public comments.
Susan, please comment.
Hi, I hope my clock doesn't go off either. If you're taking comments on any of the agenda now, is that what I'm hearing, or is that okay to do?
Public comments, go ahead.
Okay, I looked through the agenda, I saw your reasoning, staff's reasoning behind this pipeline. But I had a couple questions, and I was wondering if Marina Coast Water District had responded to this analysis at all? And then if you do have a contract to build this may be premature, but if it goes into a resolution, is there a way to have binding language so that the use of this pipeline is restricted to the ASR and Pure Water Monterey system? Those were my questions.
Thank you. If there are other public comments, I do want to acknowledge that Marina Coast did send a letter late this afternoon, and I've received it. I don't know if all the committee members have received it, but that is available in the record.
Okay.
Yeah, and point of order, Chairman. This public comment should be on items not on the agenda, and then with each agenda item, the public will have an opportunity to comment. But Susan's comment was pretty straightforward, so we can just keep that in mind when we get to item number 2.
I appreciate that, Dave. So comments not on an agenda item, please.
See, he wasn't clear on that. He backed up.
He accepted.
Right.
David LaRae said, hey.
That was Dave Stoll. I didn't think it was appropriate time. That's why I asked. I said, do you want just general, or am I okay? Is it okay? You said, go ahead. So.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I went a little too far in authorizing this, but Dave's right, and we should be on public comment on items that are not on the agenda. And this is a short meeting. I mean, there are not many items, so whoever wants to comment on an item, it'll be soon. So.
Okay. I see no other raised hands under oral communications.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the board. I'm sorry for that little diversion. Now we have action items on the agenda. First one is the minutes of September the 2nd. Is there any comment from the board or the committee?
I'll move approval.
We will go out to public comment also before we proceed with that motion.
I see no raised hands. Chair Riley?
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the board. So we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Evans,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
and Riley.
Aye.
Approved. 3-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, item number 2, is the recommendation from staff on the adoption of the EIR report on this bypass pipeline. First, we'll ask the committee if they have any questions of the general manager.
Right, let me introduce this a little bit too. It's on here for action, but we'll totally understand if you choose not to take any action. This was tabled during our July meeting. And staff was requested to meet with Marina Coast Water District representatives and Cal-Am to discuss some of the concepts that were raised in Marina Coast's letter for the July board meeting. We did eventually meet with Marina Coast staff and general counsel September 24th. We received a very well-reasoned 4-page memorandum on optimizing Carmel River water rights permits. I think the problem area we identified is that we share the ASR permits in name with California American Water, and the permit 21-330 is Cal-Am's in Cal-Am's name alone, which is their Table 13 water right. And Cal-Am had declined to attend the meeting, basically stating that they had no interest in working with Marina Coast Water District on this concept. Since that time, John has spoken with NOAA Fisheries, and we've looked at it a little bit harder. I think there's still a few things up in the air, but in general, we've concluded that there's more effort and less likelihood for success in a timely fashion to rehash all the permits than would be served by approving the bypass pipeline. So we kind of bring it back to you. I know that Chairman Edwards is on as an attendee or a participant. Attendee, I guess, is our term. He has expressed an interest in tabling this until the new board is seated at a minimum, which would take it at least to December. It was tabled also waiting the outcome of the Cal-Am coastal development permit application, and they ultimately pulled that application, which means there's been no change on the Coastal Commission side of things either. So we've just been kind of in the same situation since this was last addressed in July. I did note that the 4-page memo that Roger Masuda had put together for our September meeting is pretty much completely captured in the 11-page letter that the board and district council received today. And with that, to tell you that we've got what appear to be 4 representatives of California American on as attendees, as well as a representative of Denise Duffy and Associates to answer any of those type of questions. And with that, I don't know, John, if you want to fill in kind of what your experience with NIMS was and other things.
I'd like to jump in just for one moment. I would like to point out that I did receive this 11-page memo from Roger Masuda, legal counsel for Marina Coast Water District. I did not. It was transmitted at about 3:15 today. It was received. I printed it out at 3:30. I immediately sent a copy to you and to Arlene for distribution. But It's an 11-page memo, and I do not pretend to have pored over it. I have not made a careful analysis of this 11 pages. And I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
This is Director Evans. I have a question for Dave on something that you said, I'm sorry, Dave Stolt. I thought I heard you state that that staff feels it's easier and more effective to go the water rights route than it would be to approve this for construction. Is that what you just said?
No, the opposite. We still think that a 1.3 mile pipeline and approvals is a more direct route than trying to get places of use amended and a water right that we don't hold even put into play.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I probably misspoke.
And I can fill in, Dave, where you were asking about the conversation with NOAA. So after we met with Marina Coast, we believe that we had the understanding that, and this is where, and I'd ask for Marina Coast to correct me if I'm wrong, but the thought was to use the ASR water for direct consumption during the winter time when you're within the flow requirements of the river, rather than injecting it into the Seaside Basin and building up a drought reserve. And you would build up a drought reserve of pure water Monterey water instead of ASR water. And then that way you wouldn't need a pipeline going two directions. And so in thinking through what that meant and going through our files and trying to figure out what other agreements have been made around ASR and ASR operations, we identified an agreement called the ASR agreement from late 2000s that was put into place between CalAm, NOAA, and the district, and it basically outlines the decision process and gives the control over the recovery of banked ASR water in the Seaside Basin to NOAA to use to their to predetermine the best use of that water for the river, and then in the quarterly water budget process say when that water will be recovered to best benefit the river. So the district and CalAm have regular calls with NOAA on other projects, and Padres Dam was the call that it was on. And I asked them what their initial thoughts would be on changing the water rights to be direct use and building up a drought reserve in the Seaside Basin that was of pure water Monterey origin. And it was my understanding that their opinion was that would be seen as them losing the ability to use a drought reserve that's built up in the Seaside Basin as agreed upon in the ASR agreement, and could possibly be a sort of a protest if we were to file for the change of petition of the water rights. And based on what was said in the meeting, I think that because Marina Coast is not a signatory in the ASR agreement, rather it's CalAm and the district, that within the next 4 weeks, the district and CalAm should expect to receive a letter basically stating NOAA's opinion on their opposition of changing of the water rights.
Dave, I have a couple of questions, just more on the process than the substance. This is a complicated issue, and there are a lot of parties to the discussion. And I'm not sure when we reach the end of those discussions, whether it's with Marina Coast, whether it's with NOAA, whether it's with CalAm. It sounds to me like there's still some conversations that have not taken place or not completed, perhaps. And so I'm not particularly interested in moving this as an action item through the committee because of the unknowns. But my question to you, General Manager, is more of a process question. Is it better to have a full board public input session today on this issue? Or would it make more sense to have the people raise the questions that they feel they still have and therefore allow some structure for the district to proceed as opposed to answering every question. I mean, just ask the question, but get it on the table that way. Do you have a reaction to that?
Yeah. Yes, I do. You know, if the committee just kicks this up to the full board without a recommendation, we're going to have one of those classic he said, she said public comment periods where it'll feel like it's completely unresolved, that, you know, there's one body of opinion out here and there's another body of opinion over there. So what would be best would be for us to get all unanswered questions on the table and just pick them off one at a time, and try to get to completeness. I just don't think we're ever going to get to completeness because, you know, Marina Coast raises a variety of interesting concepts, but all of which require an action of somebody else and the timeline of another regulator. And so looking at the time frame in which we're looking for a solution. So if we pulled the trigger at this November board meeting, the work could be done by March is what Ian had told me last week. So obviously if we don't pull the trigger, you know, it won't be March, it'll be April. I know John publicly has said how many days a year he thinks it would affect. But then we still get the question, it's not going to be that many days of many years, especially in drier years rather than normal. So maybe we just need to get all the questions back out and pick them off one at a time and be done with it.
Picking off the questions tonight, picking off the questions in the near future.
Yeah, I would say the near future. I think there's still enough uncertainty that, consider yourself, Director Riley, one of your prime motivators in moving it in July was to wait and see what the Coastal Commission did. And now we're in limbo on that. Cal-Am's indicated that they're going to resubmit an application. We don't know what form that's going to take or when that's going to happen. There's been discussion of alternative dispute resolution, which does not appear to be starting with City of Marina or Marina Coast. So, there are just certain things that are either likely going to remain unanswered, or we can get to the specific questions. But a couple of the things that haven't changed are the proposals do require a change in the place and use of the ASR and the Table 13 water rights, which will take quite a bit of time to do. The proposal also would affect the season of use and the water accounting, which is, that's doable. But the latest issue that John has raised that NOAA thinks, there's one school of thought that says once Cal-Am's down to its legal right on the river, especially if they operate it in the manner that they're talking about, which is trying to take their legal supply in the shoulder and off period months, not the peak summer months, that NOAA may not really have any enforcement power after that point in time. They're indicating that they believe they do through our quarterly water budget process and the agreement, the ASR agreement. But I think the biggest issue, then over somewhat, we think, with this election, and is this, a decision the existing board who's heard it already should make, or the new board should make? And that was a conversation I had with Director Edwards. So it's entirely up to you all, but there are certainly additional questions that we could, put more answers to, I guess, and bring it back once again.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is ask the committee a couple questions and then see about going forward. If you have questions of the GM, we could do those now. Or we could go to the public comment, and then when we bring it back, we can ask our own questions in addition to, or whatever we feel after hearing from the public comment. Do you have questions now that you would like to pursue? Molly, please.
Thank you. The one thing that's really been bothering me that I don't feel like I got a very good clarification on when this came before us before is that this pipeline is just, it's very similar to the pipeline that was put in the Pure Water Monterey expansion SEIR. And I just want to understand if they're the same or if they're different, because if they're different, then it looks like if this is built and if someday the Pure Water Monterey expansion is built, that we're going to have two pipelines in the same location doing effectively the same thing. And that concerns me. I haven't had time to read through the letter from Marina Coast's attorney. I did see that came in, but of course I saw it right as I turned on my computer to get into this meeting. When I started reading through it, it's pretty extensive and I didn't get very far. So I know that Marina Coast has raised good points in the past, and I think that this deserves a good read. So I don't have, I'll probably have more questions coming after I get through that, but I think that deserves some attention by all of us before moving forward with this item. So that's my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Evans. Director Adams, would you have any comment at this point? Questions, really?
Yes, thank you. There was a question that I wanted answered, and I got a bit of an off-the-cuff sort of response when we were talking about this last time it appeared before us. But I want to know how much the project is going to cost. I know that is not what we're talking about. It's not a direct issue now, but sooner or later, if we put it in, the ratepayers are going to have to pay for it. So I want to see more of what the cost will be and what the plan to amortize that cost is going to be. And then secondly, regarding the letter, I find it on the Board of Supervisors as well as here offensive when people send us critical documents an hour before the meeting begins. And I agree with my colleague, Director Evans, that we, out of simple respect, we should be paying more attention to the letter than, not even being able to digest it before this meeting started. So I agree. I don't think that we're in a position to be able to even receive the report at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems to be a new trend that is proving effective. Get a lengthy letter from Latham and Watkins, and off goes an agenda item for another meeting. You get a letter from Manat Phelps, off goes an agenda item for another meeting. And here, from Marina Coast, because it is substantive and probably needs a deeper look.
Director Riley, you should unmute.
Yeah, well, on that point, Dave, I do think those parties that have a vested interest also may get the agenda late, our own agenda. So, I mean, and these are important issues, and these are big issues, and they're expensive issues. So I think it's worth, whether we blame people for being late or not reading things on time or getting them later, whatever it is, whatever that process is. I just think we need to kind of be reminded that, these are pretty heavy duty policy issues and expense issues, and we should get on top of them and feel pretty comfortable where we're going before. So if there's some delays at some point, I mean, unless there's some sense of urgency that has not been presented yet, I don't mind taking our time to get a better handle on things. So anyway, what I'd like to do is I only have one other question. Is there a sense of urgency about this? I'm going to pick up on your comment, Dave, about Cal-Am indicated that they might be able to get this finished in April or May or something. It seemed like early summer. And if it were needed and we feel it needs to be implemented, there's still months ahead that could still be done in time for the ASR season. So, I mean, if that's a fact, then we have a little time, even though it may be urgent. I'm questioning about your sense of urgency and also the time frame that I just cited, if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, I turned to John to better understand what he thinks the crossover or overlap is going to be between moving water north to south and south to north in that, April, May window. I guess it would depend quite a bit on rainfall.
Yeah, it would, and I see that Tim O'Halloran has his hand up. I might just yield my time to him because they have an extensive plan of how they want to fill their tanks.
If Tim could respond, I'd appreciate it. Or comment.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to give a brief update on the status of the project. So we currently have the project out to bid, and we expect the bid opening date is November 16th. We have quite a bit of interest in the project, so a lot of contractors looking at it. Our anticipated schedule, if we can award the project soon after that bid opening date, we would have the project complete and in service in mid-April.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was I didn't hear an answer in there for the time that the water needs to go both directions, and I believe and this is I would talk more with Chris because he's been looking very closely at this. Obviously, our ASR permits allow for diversion until the end of May, but if we're moving off of production and injection into the aquifer around February, so we can let the disinfection byproducts ingrowth period occur over 4 weeks, and so we can start producing in March or April. You're stopping injection in February or March, so it would cut off half the ASR season basically.
Thank you. I'd question whether it's half the season. Is it just the last 2 months or so?
Well, so if you are moving in a direction where we're in, so I want to call back to another process that this board is in, and it's in the district is in the process of moving the ASR program from its current regime over to the general permit for injection of drinking water. And as we're doing that, we're going through the possibility of dechlorinating water. That if we dechlorinate the water prior to injecting the water, you can turn around the next day and recover the water because you do not have the ingrowth of disinfection byproducts. If you do not dechlorinate, which is the way that the project is set up right now and has been regulated in the past, you have to stop injection probably 4 to 5 weeks before you want to start recovery to allow for that process to happen. So you would need to say, you would have to make an operational decision in February. If you wanted to start recovering in March, you'd have to shut off early February.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from committee members for, yes, Director Evans?
So on that schedule about the project is already designed, out to bid, bids are supposed to be coming in on the 16th. If all goes according to plan, then they would have it complete by April, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
since that impacts, that construction would occur during the ASR season, is it not smarter to wait and build that after ASR season and then use the summertime to do the construction? I also could wonder about excavating during the rainy season and how much construction delays will be occurring due to any kind of weather event. So it seems to me like it would be better, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to do the construction later in the summer and then have it available for the full ASR season instead of impacting this ASR season.
I don't think there'd be much impact on ASR itself because it's a, pipeline with a beginning and an end, and ASR can function, we can still inject up until the point we choose not to inject, and then you connect up the pipeline. And if we're still going in the season, now you've gone live, you won't have too many delays on the injection of water. You only have a delay on the injection of water if we then prioritize extraction of pure water Monterey water over and above injecting. So, and that's where, as John says, he and Chris Cook has the spreadsheets, and we can't predict whether there is a conflict yet or not.
Right. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Unless Director Adams, unless you have another comment, I'm going to take it out to the public. I do have a number of questions, by the way, but I'll save those. So Arlene, let's go to the public, please.
And Tim, if you're done, you can take your hand down. Thanks.
Arlene, you're muted.
Thank you. Keith, please present. Keith Vandermaiden.
All right. Thank you, Chair Riley and committee members. So Cal-Am is certainly going through a shift in how they operate their system from a system that historically has really been supplied from the Carmel River in the south to one that's now principally supplied in the north, utilizing the Seaside Groundwater Basin. And the memo that Roger Masuda had provided that you have, and I apologize for the timing on that. We weren't familiar this was coming to the agenda, so we tried to get that as soon as we could. But it really outlines a lot of what is going on and the change in the system, because as a result, there have been some operational issues that have arisen from that in terms of how to optimize both the groundwater basin and the legal Carmel River diversions. And staff in the report has provided you with one potential option, which is this parallel pipeline. And as commented earlier, I think what was missing from the report and really what's hard to understand is truly what is both the benefit and cost of that, and how often are you going to need to bypass the existing pipeline, and what does that really mean in terms of benefit? And the reason I think that is important is because we have brought up that there is another way to go forward, and it's not equivalent. The options that we are presenting as far as looking at the permits and optimizing the pipeline that we currently own could provide far greater benefit, we believe, in terms of optimizing existing resources, but also banking more water, whether that is ASR or Pure Water Monterey. And so we actually support the idea of continuing this. We would love to provide more of those comments and questions and work with your staff to get those answers, because we do think that working together, there is a better way forward. And so we think with those permit changes, optimization of a current pipe, and that's one of the reasons we are also involved in this, is we do own the current pipeline there. And so we would like to see how we could better utilize that if there's a need to do that. And so we support maybe delaying this further and working with your staff further, but we just really think there's a lot of information that just wasn't available at this point. And we hope that we can get that information and work to come up with the best solution. And so thank you very much.
Are there any other persons who would like to comment under this item? Please use the raised hand icon, or if you were calling in, please dial *3.
Could Ian be unmuted so I can ask a question?
Yes, let me find him. Sure. Ian, I've just unmuted your microphone.
Okay.
Hey, and Dave.
Hey, Dave.
So if you open your bids on the 16th and we balk for the November meeting, we don't meet again as a board until December 14th. Would that schedule be suitable for you all?
Well, it certainly would impact our risk profile. We would have to delay things and the schedule would be pushed out.
Yeah.
Because we would have to order a long lead item right now to get started is pipe. So we would have to order pipe now, or supposedly after this meeting, to meet the schedule that Tim mentioned and possibly optimize that schedule and get done sooner. So yeah, it would have an impact.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I wouldn't be ordering any pipe after a committee meeting anyway, because you never know what's going to happen at the board meeting.
That's true. Yeah, at the board meeting. Yeah. Just at the board meeting. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate it. What I'm detecting here, though, is everybody who has an interest in this item appears to be represented on the phone or on the video. We've heard some really good questions. You know, is it the same pipeline as in the SEIR? What is its cost? What is the sense of urgency? How often would you need the bypass, and how many years and types of years does that happen? And then, of course, the bid schedule. I think I would just encourage everyone with an interest in this to ship in your seemingly unanswered questions, and we'll do the best we can to present all of those to the Water Supply Planning Committee in the first week of December, leading up to the December board meeting, and just have a do-over.
Dave, I certainly agree with that, but I think we do have a public comment and we can go through that. But I would encourage the public to raise the questions that you think need to be answered. And that kind of fits the dialogue we're having right now. So that's what I would encourage the public to do.
All right.
So,
I see some raised. I do see some raised hands. Should we go ahead, Chair Riley?
Yes, please, to the public comment.
All right, thank you. Anna Thompson, present your comment.
Am I unmuted already?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you, Anna.
Okay. I think that perhaps there's better alternatives. It sounds like maybe there might be a better solution to this problem. And I also was wondering why, if it's related to the Pure Water Monterey, why is it Cal-Am is doing this project rather than being publicly owned? Why do we have to be relying on Cal-Am to build this pipe if it needs to be built? That was my question. And then I think that there might be better alternatives and would be less intrusive and could be worked out very well. That's what I'm thinking. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Melody Chris, present your comment.
Melody Crislock. So I'm just wondering why Cal-Am wants this white so quickly. I mean, they've already got it out for bid. It just strikes me as a little worrisome that they want this finished by April, because that's probably about the time that they'll be bringing this back to the Coastal Commission. And this was one of the main problems that the Coastal Commission recognized, and that they didn't have this pipeline. It still kind of reeks of like, yeah, we're trying to trick you guys into doing this pipeline so we can get this desal passed. The other thing is NOAA. So NOAA has stubbornly supported Cal-Am all along. They've refused any reasonable look at what the water supply really is all about from Pure Water Monterey's expansion and continue to just say, no, we have to have the desal. And so, you know, they look like a problem. Yes. Okay. So they're going to not let you have the water rights because they want Cal-Am's desal. This is a little crazy. I mean, wouldn't you want those water rights anyway down, down the line in the future? Wouldn't those be valuable? I mean, are they worth going through the trouble of getting them? Those would be some of my questions. Thank you.
And please present your comment.
Yeah, thank you. My comment is simply that it is imperative, in my opinion, that this pipeline advance so that we can maximize our water supplies that we have available to us today. We all realize that desal and other potential water supplies for the peninsula are delayed. And this pipeline will help maximize existing supplies. That's the bottom line. It's very simple. Everyone knows it. All the technical folks that run the system know it. And everything else is just noise to actually do the opposite of what Ms. Crislock said, which is to keep this open as an issue for desal. We are not advancing it to address it for that. We are trying to advance it to maximize supplies for the peninsula to help the community with its supplies. And that's the bottom line. It's very simple. Thank you.
Chair Riley, I see no other raised hands.
Okay, last call for public comment because we'll bring it back to the committee. Okay, we'll bring it back to the committee for more questions and comments. I have a lot. If I can find them. A lot of questions and comments too. But I want to pretty much stick to the structure of raising questions that we think should be responded to. And I know it puts a burden on our staff and the interested parties in trying to sort out what their priorities are and what their comments might be. But I do think I have a lot of questions too. So Mary, I'm going to ask you, do you want to go now or do you want to go after I do? But I'm ready to go.
Go ahead and go, George.
All right. My concern basically is how important is the maximizing of ASR water when it's kind of a low producer of water in general. And if we maximize it, how does the carrying capacity of the what's it called, the pipeline over the hill, over the ridge? How much water are we really talking about in, say, the month of May or the month of April? According to the calculations I have, it's about 90 acre feet. That's like 1%, less than 1% of the water that we use. And if it's less than 1%, why do we build such an enormous priority around such a small amount of water? I'm not saying it's not a bad plan to maximize it, but this is an expensive project, and I'm a little concerned about the cost benefit analysis of that marginal use of water to maximize it. That's a broad-based question, Dave, but that's kind of where I'm going, is the cost benefit side of spending this money for, I don't know, an extra month or extra 2 months of water. That's one question. Another is there's later on the agenda is discussion of a modification of the existing agreement on ASR operational plan. Does this have any relationship at all to that matter, or is that a totally independent and separate issue? Can you answer that now, please?
Independent.
Thank you. Question I have too is, I went back to the EIR on this, and it still contains a diagram that suggests that this was originally proposed as a supplement to the desal project. Because in one of the charts or grid, or whatever you call it, the diagram of the pipeline, it talks about a desal bypass pipeline. And now it's called ASR bypass pipeline, or maybe it's called pure water pipeline. I don't know. It just seems to me that when Cal-Am proposed it, it was proposed as a desal, and now it's been modified. And I'm just concerned that it's a moving target that, and I'm not sure what it really serves. But I think the cost benefit side of the ASR piece is what concerns me the most. Yet the title of it still looks a little awkward.
Yeah, but keep in mind, in a world without desal and with pure water Monterey expansion, which of course is smaller than desal, which makes ASR loom a little larger in terms of its importance to the portfolio. A pipeline like this would be even more desirable and more needed because of the reliance on ASR, pure water Monterey, all in that same area. So.
Okay, and I understand what you're saying. I understand that. Another question I have is that nothing has changed. I think a lot of the bottleneck on just decision making, and not regardless of the bottleneck on water, the bottleneck on decision making is that the local court has issued a stay based on assuming that the Coastal Commission will make a decision. A lot of other alternative actions are being delayed because expecting the Coastal Commission to make a decision. And I'm a little reluctant to jump out on some particular project where we're all still waiting for the Coastal Commission to make a decision. And in some ways, we're waiting on Cal-Am to kind of initiate the next step in that decision-making process. So I just think it's a confusing environment of contingency planning that I'm very uncomfortable with. So that's more of a comment than a question. A different question, and again, Dave, I'm not asking for answers necessarily, but if Pure Water Monterey expansion were to be approved, would this project be necessary? I just leave that. So you can, I mean, if it's a yes or no, give me an answer. But if it's a little more complicated, let's leave it. Would it be a yes or no?
Yeah, I think it'd be a resounding yes. John, nod or shake your head.
Yes, it would be utilized for Pure Water Monterey expansion.
Okay. I just want to clarify that question for myself. Back on the just the limitations that we have around ASR and Table 13. The NOAA restrictions were established in the early 2000s, John. I think that's what you said, which was after the CDO was first issued, the 9510 order from the State Water Board. Was it all related to kind of saving the Carmel River? I mean, if it's a yes or no, if it needs an explanation, I want to postpone it.
Well, the CDO was issued in 2009. Prior, it was a state board order, and so the state board order did not have any timed ramp downs. It basically had no teeth. The ASR agreement came around prior to the cease and desist order, and it was a way, because ASR water was kind of the newest water on the block. It was a way for the regulatory agencies to find a way to put controls on it so that they could use it to the best of the environment.
Okay, I'm not sure that clarified all my questions, but thank you for that. Another question would be, if this is approved and Cal-Am does build it and it is completed this summer, what's the process of what's the timing and the process for it showing up on our water bills? And that can come later. I don't need an answer to that, but I know it happens. I'm just curious about what the answer to that is. The question I have too is about the dechlorination facility. If that is a requirement to cut 30 days off of the waiting time, how important is that 30 days in a cost benefit question? Because maybe the 30 days is not bad waiting for it, unless, there's some reason for that, but I don't see that. I came across a comment that at least the question in my mind was, is the bypass kind of insurance for the water supply, or is it a critical piece of the water supply? I'm not sure I'm asking the question the right way, but if it's kind of protection or covering redundancy or giving some additional flexibility, I'm trying to get a sense of how important is that flexibility if it's only a matter of 100 or a couple hundred acre feet of water, the expense related to making that happen. And again, just a question. Well, that's enough for me. I do have other questions, but I don't need to go into everything I have. It can always come up sometime later. Mary, I'll go back to you, and then Molly, I'll go to you two again.
Thank you, George. I thank you for your comprehensive questions, which just about have taken all of mine into consideration. So at this point, I don't have specific additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Director Evans?
Yeah, I did have a lot of questions on the cost benefit analysis and how much this pipeline would be used. So I just look forward to hearing those answers. I have no additional questions, but I will make a motion to postpone this to future meeting, December meeting.
Is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, fine, Mary. It's button pushing time.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
And Director Riley?
Aye.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, so this will be postponed to a future meeting, probably December, but I'll leave that to you basically on the kind of question package we've given you tonight. So, all right, so that completes item number 2. We have a couple of more agenda items. We'll have for discussion only, but I will ask for public comment if there are any. So an update on Pure Water Monterey project, please.
Yeah, so we have Maureen Hamilton on the line who can add some to this since she's being roped into what appears to be a permanent lifetime position of project management on Pure Water Monterey, which I'm sure she does not find amusing. So Pure Water Monterey began deliveries of company water beginning September 1st. So we have approximately 1,153 acre feet in our operating reserve, because part of August we exceeded the 1,000 number and just kept putting it in, because eventually we have to add to the 1,000 an additional 750 acre feet over 3 years. September's production was only about 88 acre feet, and we were in the midst of conditioning, final conditioning of the 2 deep wells. Deep Injection Well 1's final conditioning is over, and its performance has really been off the charts. It's well, we just closed out October with just over 190 acre-feet injected, and just Sunday night or Sunday day, over the weekend, we did 9 acre-feet in a day, which in a 30-day month would be 270 acre-feet. So the trends are good. However, we will be shutting down Deep Injection Well 2 for its final conditioning here in a couple of weeks. And then the 2 shallow Vado Zone wells, they're out there driving in piles and prepping slab pouring. And I think, Maureen, if you could weigh in what you think the time schedule is on the Vado Zone restart might be, and anything else you have to add.
The Vados restart, they expect to have that wrapped up by the end of this month. I imagine we'll begin, if not the end of this month, early next month. We've got the pre-construction meeting for DIWs 3 and 4 scheduled Wednesday, I believe. And notice to proceed will be issued for November 16th.
Oh, an important point, the bids did come in, and DIW 4, which is the one we've agreed to take on, came within our budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
No, the only question I had was what the bid came in at for DIW 4. So thank you.
I think it was 3.2. We were without the construction management component, and so just the the hard costs within the bid packet itself.
Those are good numbers, Dave. It's nice hearing those. Let's go out to the public if there are any comments on this item.
Yeah, Arlene, we should probably just ask if those are old hands raised. Ian, you still have a hand raised. Susan, you have a hand raised.
Yeah, you can take mine down, sorry.
You'll have to take it down yourself, Ian.
Oh, okay.
Susan, did you want to present a comment?
Yeah, just to quickly say that, there's been a lot of naysayers about Pure Water Monterey. This is showing that it can perform at a very good level and provide water, and I'm just happy to see this work being done and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other raised hands.
Good. We'll bring it back to the committee and go to the next item. Is that item?
I'm trying to find out who it is right now. Here. All right. That should be better.
Okay, item number 4, a little discussion on maximizing storage in the Seaside Basin. So, General Manager, that's you?
Well, it's really you, and you and I didn't have a chance to talk on this topic, so we'll take it very short and sweet right now. But you had raised something of this order as an item for discussion, and I thought maybe we could just get a little clarity as to what you're asking, and we'll put it back on the agenda.
Well, my concern was that if we are producing water of any volume, whether it's Pure Water Monterey or ASR right now, that is there any way to, and it goes back a little bit to the discussion we had on item number 2 about where the water comes from. is there any way to maximize the placement or storage of that water in the Seaside Basin? And I don't know if there are cost factors related to this and where the reimbursement question comes in. But it's a matter of just having some kind of understanding on a strategy about how to maximize storage for every ounce that's produced. Either ought to be used or stored and not just held back. And that's kind of my question, Dave. And I don't know.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and it's actually consistent with some discussions we've been having about. So when you take the water purchase agreement for Pure Water Monterey, it's limited. If we can produce 3,500, they'll pay for 3,500. But if we could produce 3,800, why wouldn't we? Well, the reason we might choose not to is we have to pay for it without a ready buyer. But we've looked at some scenarios where there is seasonally and annually excess water to our current need. And it does beg the question that if you have excess water available to you, do you just dial back all of your production facilities, or is it of interest to produce more and bank more? Certainly, because we've got an obligation to get our operating reserve up to 1,750, we would probably look at that, budget permitting, just getting to that number as soon as possible. But I understand the question, and it begs a good piece of discussion, because there will be times when all the wells are working that you can run the plant at a little higher flux. The growers aren't going to be taking all of the tertiary treated wastewater they need in certain months of the year. So there's additional source water supplies. And there, for a period of time, there's some Marina Coast Water District wastewater that they may not be in a position to use. So it goes straight back to that question of, if you've got the ability to produce extra water, should you, and how do you pay for it? So we'll come back to this committee with greater discussion on that. You're mute.
Okay, if I can just add one or two other components to the question. The table 13 water may or may not be in that category of being able to produce more or use more or send it somewhere. And does that fit into the formula somehow? I just leave that with a question. But the other question is, I know the water master is beginning to look at how can they afford to buy more water for storage in order to protect the Seaside groundwater basin. And that's a whole different discussion, I understand, but there's an interest in adding to the reserve there. So that's just another piece of the question.
Yeah, and I think we need to be a little careful on that one, because that was put out there as kind of a straw man during the Coastal Commission hearing to say, oh, only DSAL has the ability to provide protective well levels or protective water levels, which in as much was an admission by the water master that the DSAL plant was sized too big, because if it had the capacity for something it wasn't designed originally to do, then where'd that capacity come from? Neither the DSAL project nor Pure Water Monterey expansion were sized to provide protective water levels. They were both sized to provide for 700 acre feet a year in in-lieu recharge. And there's a difference between the two. And the water master's done absolutely no looking at the facilities that would be required and who would pay for them and how the assessment would be made for moving water to places of injection, and nor have they come up with a funding plan to pay for expensive water to replenish the basin. So it was put out there, but there's not been a whole lot of planning that's been done as to how to do it and how to use it and who would pay for it.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So, I'll just ask the committee if they have any other comments on this. Otherwise, I'll go to the next item. Okay. Let's go to item number 5, update on ASR construction. Maybe we've already gotten some of that.
No, actually, this one's going to be great. Maureen will present, or I don't know who has it, Maureen, you or Arlene, but take you through what's been going on over there.
Maureen, you can share your screen now.
Thanks, Arlene. So Santa Margarita construction, we did the backflush basin, gosh, 2 years ago. That's the photo here on the top. The bottom is the chemical building that we just started up the middle of last week. The last presentation I gave, I believe, was in September, early September, and where we were is we had our concrete poured, and we're doing the prep to get the asphalt down at both the southern entrance and northern exit. And probably within a couple days of that meeting, had asphalt down in both locations. I'm sure John Lear might agree with me. It feels luxurious to have hard pavement to drive on, and the additional parking when we're not waiting on trucks is a real luxury as well. Last time the building had been painted and plastered, and over the last 2 months they put the tile on the roofs. We have our very fancy gutters and lighting that was installed. Last time we'd placed the motor control center, which is how the signals get sent to pumps to start and stop. Signals get sent to motor operator valves to open and close, and the programmable logic controller cabinet here on the right. And it's probably easier to see on this photo. You see there are no wire conduits dropped to the units. They had basically just been put in place. And this is in the process of the electricians wiring up the motor control center. You see the conduits have been put in, the wires are in and being connected and tested. Huge thanks to Mike Grondin with California American and his contractor and his electricians for coming in and getting the PLC hooked up while we were still having electricians in what proved to be a fairly small room. Last time presentation of the chemical rooms and the analyzer room, we basically had the components in place, physically mounted. Over the last 2 months, electrical was installed, the control wiring was also installed, and the connection to the process, it was plumbed up to the process. Also with the analyzer, it came out looking so much more complicated than when they just had the individual analyzers mounted. We had training about 2 weeks ago. I put a picture of the clay valve training here just because I think that looks cool. Caliam showed up in force. Again, huge thanks to Chuck Howard, Robert James, Mike Magretto for communicating with their staff and getting them out there. We had a good turnout and everybody was highly participatory. The chemical arrived Monday of last week, and that was a really exciting day for all of us. We started up middle of the week. The first job was to make sure all the manual valves were in the right position. And this picture here is showing, I don't know if we were blowing off ASR 1 or 3 at that time, but we routed water through the header to the blow off and were able to tune the sodium hypochlorite for disinfection and the zinc orthophosphate corrosion inhibitor on the two different, the 16-inch header and the 20-inch header while blowing it off, just waiting to get their permits. And just in case you're driving by, you can newly recognize, we've got a nice sign with the Water Management District, Aquifer Storage and Recovery. And I know John Lear and I are very happy to have an address on the front of the property. Deliveries get sent all over the place. And you can see the new building here on the right-hand side. And that's all I have.
Just prepare yourselves. There will be a final phase at some point for grading roadways and getting the remainder of this, the fencing around the property and some landscaping. I think landscaping's in this budget, right, Maureen?
Landscaping is, and fencing, I apologize for not completing that. Yeah, the exterior pipe needs to be painted and the fencing is going to be installed as a part of this contract. The landscaping, we have an agreement with the city, but when we gave back so much of the sidewalk, we ended up with a lot more dirt and can really do some neat things for water conservation and supply from an education standpoint.
Right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The photographs they're good. It's looking good. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Dave. Any comments from the public?
Just
No raised hands.
Yeah, I see no raised hands.
Okay, back to the committee. Are there any comments from committee members? Otherwise, we'll go to our next item.
just really quickly, I drive by that building rather regularly, and it just looks terrific. If it performs nearly half as well as it looks, I think we're going to be in great shape. Thanks.
Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Mary's comment. Yes, I would drive by when I would go from work to taking meetings at the district, and to watch that progress it was phenomenal over the last several months. Watching that get going and all the changes, and when it started to look like a building and the roof was up and all of that has just been really nice. So great job. Thanks, Maureen and your team, for handling that and managing it and doing it so well. So.
Director Evans, is that your handprint in the concrete?
I will never tell.
Well, I just want to comment too. I think what you were able to do in a very tight footprint worked out really well, and I think that was a challenge I was glad to see that acknowledged or complimented. Also, the photograph of installing the chemical tank sideways into the bay door was about the best photograph I've seen of the whole thing, which showed you what kind of challenge it was. Anyway, thank you. Can we go to the next item, please, on amendments to the ASR operating agreement?
Yeah, and there's not much to tell you here. We just wanted to apprise you of events that are taking place, because I think we earlier in the year we mentioned we need to revise the agreement, and notice for revision of that was to be 180 days prior to its expiration, which would have taken us into just recently. But we went down a path of just redrafting it. And so what you don't see are the changes that the district made to the original agreement, but those were primarily just two sets of changes. One was identifying that future ASR and present ASR facilities, the old agreement didn't envision wells 3 and 4. And so we updated everything to where we are today. And then we also, in the original agreement, referenced a franchise where Cal-Am was going to be given a franchise to operate ASR, almost like a concession or what have you. And that agreement was never drafted, but still referred to. So our draft, which is the basis of the red line version that you see in the second attachment, made those types of changes. Then Cal-Am did the red line version, which kind of moved some of the things around in describing ASR facilities and associated ASR facilities and so forth, but still the same intent that we had. But then some of their work on events of default, termination, renewal, you can see where they've headed in a path that's a little more specific. I haven't seen anything that I don't think we can live with, but we've not sent them back our version on their red line version. So what you're seeing in the red line version, any edits were theirs, anything that's either stricken through or left alone was ours. And that's just more to give you a sense of where things are going. We hope to turn around a revision here in the next couple of weeks and hopefully be done with it.
Dave, to be done with it means it will be on the agenda for action. That's necessary.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll come back to this committee for review with a recommendation to adopt the extension. I think, basically we get a new 20-year term as long as early termination isn't affected.
Good. Okay, let's go out to the public quickly and see if there are any comments.
I see no raised hands.
Okay, back to the committee. Any comments from the committee members?
None from me, thank you.
Not at this time.
Yeah, and I have none either. So let's go to the last suggested items placed on future agenda. Does any committee member have a suggestion? I do not, by any chance, Dave. So you may be happy about that.
No, but it is interesting. We've done so many visual meetings now, Zoom and Teams and what have you. And I got to thinking that it's good that they only gave you the raised hand icon, because if they gave you the yawning face icon or the thumbs down icon, we just get inundated, I think. So it's
So let me go back specifically to Molly. Do you have any suggestions for future item?
No, the suggestions that I've made have been taken into consideration by staff. I expect to see them in the future.
And Mary?
I think one of the things I'd like to see is some sort of a formal orientation for the new board members that would include those of us who'd like to attend as a refresher as well.
yeah, absolutely. Just district-wide orientation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and there are going to be new members shortly, so it'll all be tied together with some members as well. And I would welcome an orientation too. Okay, well, no other items on the agenda. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.